And so I am going to do my usual thing, which is to vamp a little bit and take up some non-controversial issues until such time. What? Yes.
Couple.
Until such time as we've got this table is a little fuller. First of all, there is an exit to your rear. There is an exit to my rear. Second, I would like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to move to approving the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes for November 8th and November 19th, and the November departmental reports for building, planning, and police.
Second.
Discussion. None.
Getting our
All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to propose that we extend the town's noise ordinance time limit for the Horse and Hound on New Year's Eve.
The standard, we do it every year.
We do it every year, and we would extend it for an additional hour.
And we've got clearance from the police department and everybody else in the building
Yes.
department. So I second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The audit report I have been through in some detail and am happy with. If you two gentlemen would like to take a little time,
I make a motion to approve the claims as submitted.
I'll second.
Anything outstanding? Crazy in that. Hey, Danny. We're looking at the claims. We're almost done.
Discussion?
We'll be out of here in about a minute. No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We approved the consent agenda. We gave the Horse and Hound 1 hour, passed the noise ordinance for New Year's Eve, and we just approved claims.
Thank you.
So we're just trying to get through all that, so we can just do the other one when you and Frank get here. You have any communications?
Oh, yes. Thanks. That's
I'm going to go through that.
that's somewhere I can go. The town board has received a resignation from John Guzmano from his position as a member of the planning board. I'd like to thank John, who has been an exceptionally good, thoughtful, and hard-working member of that board, as is everybody on that board. That board is it's certainly one of the most important jobs in town. And secondly, it is a job which requires a lot of hours and hard work. So I truly want to thank John, and I propose a resolution to accept his resignation as of the 31st of December, 2012.
Well, I echo your sentiments about John. He's done a fantastic job. It's a very time-consuming board to be on, and it's hard to lose a member like that, but I read his letter, and I appreciate that he's going to move on to do other things, and appreciate that he did take the time to serve on the board. So I'll second your motion.
Thank you, John, for your service to the town. It's been invaluable, and I agree. It's one of the most efficient boards that we have. An enormous amount of work, time, effort, and really is an important position. So thank you. Very much appreciated.
Discussion? All in favor of the resolution? Aye. That, at the same time as we accept that resignation, I would like to put out the word that we obviously will be replacing him in the organizational meeting at the beginning of January. And This is a tough board. I would prefer somebody, I'm going to be honest here, who has already shown a willingness to serve the town in some capacity. The last two people we've moved on to that board have had a track record, and they have moved onto that board relatively seamlessly and have picked up the reins and are doing well there. That said, anybody who is interested in this position, please write me a letter and give me a resume. And I promise you thoughtful consideration.
And we are now fully constituted. We took care of the
Claims.
the claims and the consent agenda. And we gave the Horse and Hound an hour for New Year's Eve.
And we've accepted Guzmano's
Yeah.
resignation. All right? All right, I would now like to open a public hearing on the budget with a couple of comments. I think this budget can make no pretense to add any significant services to the town or to do anything which is particularly beneficial in terms of repairing its infrastructure, the highways. What it does do is to hold the increase to 120,000 below the cost of the increase in benefits. So, in other words, your board has, with the help of most of you who have been at continuing sessions on the budget since August, the result of all that work, together with the department heads, is a saving of 120,000 outside of benefits. Put another way, this represents a 2.4% decrease in spending if we exclude benefits from the calculation. I know benefits are huge. I'm not saying they should be excluded. I'm just saying that it is something that is relatively hard for your board to control. That said, the floor is open to anybody who wishes to comment. Oh, do you want to bring people up to date with changes we've made since Saturday's meeting?
Including Saturday for the benefit.
Yeah, we had a meeting on Saturday morning.
Most of these people were here.
7:30 in the morning. If you didn't make it, we were here at 7:30 in the morning over at the townhouse. And then after that meeting, we did some additional work which came out of that meeting to actually even further reduce the numbers from Saturday morning. So I'll let Leo, explain it in more detail.
On Saturday, we made a 2% across the board, relatively across the board, decrease to non-contractually obligated expenditures. That was roughly $19,000 decrease. Today, our assessor explained to us that we could reduce our judgments, certiorari's expense, by $22,000 that we had estimated $47,000 for 2013. She advised us we can reduce it by $22,000, leaving a $25,000 expense. And our highway superintendent decreased the electricity and fuel by a combined $7,000. The result of that is now the tax increase is 4.76. Tax rate, including the effect of the drop in assessment, is 6.4.
for those of you in the back, if you can't hear, I'm seeing some hand signals and motions in the back. We're at 4.76% is what the number is right now, thanks to some hard work since actually last Monday's meeting, Saturday's meeting, and some work between Saturday morning and today. One of the larger numbers is $22,000 that was able to be put back in, actually, or taken out because of a Verizon tax cert.
Actually, it's NICEAG.
Is it NICEAG or Verizon? NICEAG tax cert that that we were able to negotiate with NICEAG to be able to spread that payment out over a couple of years as opposed to all paying it all in the 2013 budget.
I'd like to thank our assessor for negotiating that. You should be aware that all of these reductions, with the exception of the 2% across the board, have been done not always with the hearty agreement, but certainly in discussion with the department heads involved. Anything else? In that case, I'd like to open the floor for comment. Feel free. I'd like you to come up and use the microphone, and I'd like each of you to give us your name and hamlet, if you'd like, before you speak. And I know it's easy to go on a budget for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but do me a favor and keep it to 3 to 5, can you?
Good evening, Richard Stireman, Golden's Bridge. I apologize in advance if some of the numbers I was looking at are outdated because the process moves. It's just kind of an issue spotting and really asking questions. There may be things that can be explained, and we'll have the answer right here and now. And I'm just picking on items that I wasn't able to understand from the face with them. There's a cross-river rental, which is the office space, I presume, and the line on that increases from 58,560 up to 84,000. And somebody can tell me if my information is correct, and then
Yes.
an explanation as to what that's attributable to, or
All right, I'm not promising answers to everything on the fly, but when it's a simple factual question like that, the answer is that is the cost of moving the police department in next door to the current facility.
okay.
We already have the court and planning and building and the assessor's office in Cross River in order to meet our ADA requirements. ADA also has, not surprisingly, is not very content with our existing police station. And so we're effective Jan 1, which is the date of the consent order with the Justice Department, or the date it expires. We are moving the police department into the immediately next door to them.
Right, okay. Well, that's actually a good segue to talk about issues about the police department. I have the whole expenditure from reading that line from 556,455 up to 583,559. And I see the part-time expenditures going down, overtime's going up, and vehicle lease is doubling. I guess my threshold question would be, my understanding is that we're having 2 full-time officers which are being added. Namely, we're putting in a youth officer, which is listed as part-time for over $78,000. If, again, please
Part-time?
update my facts to the extent that I have it wrong, or please let me know.
The youth officer is full-time.
Okay, it was listed as maybe my
It's
own
the
notes.
line
Okay.
below, which is
Okay,
part-time.
it's okay, so we have the youth officer, and then there's a separate police officer for about $44,000. My understanding is that has something to do with a grant which has been secured. So I want to have an understanding as to that, okay? Because my understanding, tying in, we have part-time officers, and part-time officers are supposed to fill shifts, which are available, and part of the purpose in having a overwhelmingly part-time police department with many of, if not most of, have been with the town for many, many years, is that we can keep costs down, yet have effective law enforcement here in town. So I'd like you to discuss, if we could discuss that a little bit.
First of all, just the simple facts. We have employed 2 full-time officers who are currently in school and will graduate
This week.
this week. One of those will work as a youth officer in the schools, and at the beginning of this document, in revenues, you will find that we're getting $80,000 to pay for that officer from the state.
And that's for the officer that's going to be starting,
Yes,
and that's a grant,
from the state.
and that grant goes for how long?
It goes for $80,000, and then
that's-
hopefully, I've already been working on getting that grant renewed.
But that's a year-by-year thing we have to deal
Yes.
with. So in other words, with civil service issues, what happens if next year there's no grant available, which, playing it conservative, that money is not going to be available? What happens to that officer?
Either we can choose to move him back into an open position, into a position we've kept open in highway, because he comes from highway. Or we can decide to spend extra money on him and put him on the road, or put him in the school, or anywhere else we want to put him.
But, okay, so I guess I want to,
Or we can work, I mean, truthfully,
Well,
it's
wait.
difficult because this is a negotiation,
Yeah,
all right?
Peter, this is an executive session item. To basically give you an answer on it, we are in negotiations with the school. The school has shown tremendous favor on, regardless of the grant, subsidizing the usage of that officer, but I can't go on any further from there. Because
Understood. I don't want
but-
anybody
but
disclosing anything.
it's been thought of. It has not been something that we just did.
And significantly taken into account in terms of contingency plans. So
Yeah.
we've looked out, we've had some foresight on this.
We're given every reason to believe that the grant would continue also, so.
The reason the other policeman, new policeman, is relatively less expensive, which seems confusing, is that he is not somebody who has worked for the town for a considerable number of years and can carry seniority through.
we're also setting up
So
somebody who's on a full-time career as a police officer, which would have all the corresponding benefits which they have contracted for, and pension benefits and et cetera down the road. One of the things I talked about last time is we have to look on a going-forward basis, dealing with the thing that's giving the board an increasing understandable difficulty on a going-forward basis with benefits that are going to have to be dealt with, and pension issues and contractual things that are going to be an increasing share, an increasing percentage of the total budget in a time when there's decreasing revenue coming in.
You may well be right, but I promise you, the board has thought long and hard about this one. This is something that was initiated in the budget last year, if you remember.
Okay.
And in fact, one of these police officers was in the budget for this year. Unfortunately, we moved too slowly. By the time I got in, it was too late to get him in the January class. All right? So it appears now to be something that's happening next year. But the town board has thought long and hard about the potential costs, and has thought long and hard about its number one priority, which is providing safety and security for the citizens of the town. We obviously believe that this is a better way to police. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gone down this road. I can't go much further than
No, I'm not looking for anything to be divulged as far as negotiations. I'm just trying to understand a basic concept where we've had a department predominantly filled with part-time officers.
You're right.
Then maybe from a very general perspective, I could understand the need to shift towards a full-time officers as opposed to utilizing our part-time officers to fill shifts, when I have to think that all other things being equal, that's a less expensive proposition, both now and on a going forward basis.
Not always.
I think the rest of
Not
us,
always.
yeah, felt that all things were not exactly equal, and weighing all those things out, we came to the conclusion that the benefit per dollar spent on our public security was better justified this way.
Okay, well, if it's the most efficient, then that's unfortunately.
We said the most effective as well as relatively efficient.
Okay.
It is not going, it may well not save the town money over years.
Okay.
I'm not going to pretend this was not done in order to save the town money.
Okay.
Is that a fair comment?
Well,
There's a combination of issues.
We have some.
Yeah, this year it does
This
save
year
us
it does
money.
save us money.
Let's not forget, we're not spending any money this
Right,
year,
yeah.
and there's a level of optimism that that's going to continue going forward.
Right.
And if it doesn't go forward, we have built in contingency plans where it may very well not cost us any money prospectively. So I'm not sure I fully agree with that.
Okay.
That statement, Mr. Supervisor.
All
But
right.
for today's purposes, it's not costing us a nickel, and we're providing a wonderful service not only to the town, but the school system. We're very hopeful that the school will see the benefit of that. And if on the chance that we lose that grant, we suspect that the school system, and we would hope that the school
grant's
system
different.
would recognize the benefit that they're deriving from.
There are two significant parts to that, and that's right. Just from what we've seen, the unfortunate events over the last few years going on in town, the need for having an SRO or a youth officer is apparent on a number of levels. And getting that position back and getting that as a grant is a home run. On the other note of the other officer, which had been in the works for a few years, actually had been in the works for many years, even with a previous chief that had proposed about 3 full-time officers to actually make up the problem with the ever-evolving issue with shifts, where it does look good on paper, and for years it did work. It's been very rapidly deteriorating, at least from almost the entire time, which is almost 7 years that I've been on the town board, of actually having an adequate number of shifts filled, not necessarily not having an adequate number of officers, but having them actually fill the shifts. On top of that, with the part-time union negotiations that have spent endless hours and dollars of taxpayer money to come to a fruitless end with the union, to a point where we're in arbitration right now, which might end up going, I can't go too far there, I'm sorry. Having the full-time officer could actually result in a positive financial outlook for the town, where we can't look at that as a revenue-generating position. There are standards that should be upheld when you're doing certain patrols that quite woefully have not been upheld, where I really can't go any further, but I think you can read me.
Represented police department, so in my career. I guess so.
You represent our police department?
Not you, not this one. I have, oh, not this one. No, I guess transitioning over to highway, just generally. My understanding is that after from what was initially presented, the proposal for maintenance has essentially been taken out and
Correct.
taken out wholesale, and then it's being discussed as to whether that will be put back before the voters for a referendum, or just
It's
some
one of
kind
the
of vote?
options. That's
Not
one of the
maintenance,
options we
but
discussed.
not maintenance.
Yeah, not
That's not
maintenance.
maintenance, that's not the maintenance.
Just the improvement as far as paving.
Actual paving.
Capital
Capital-
improvement.
Okay, so that's something that is gonna go back before the,
It's something that the board is going to have to consider, what the heck we're going to do about roads.
okay,
But as far as the budget is concerned,
It's outside the process.
the only, if you look to your right, you will see that the road repair and maintenance line has been brought down to 50,000, which is essentially a pothole budget. And then below that, we've got 115,000 from which we are 99.9% certain of getting from the state. Is that a fair comment? It is an annual grant that comes through year after year after year. And that 115,000 will be used to resurface and pave roads.
So for a timetable, if some kind of referendum or bond was put on, we're talking about for next year, referable to capital improvement, based upon timetable?
Yeah, there's two options. There's two options. We can go with a permissive referendum or actually put it out to vote, depending on to what degree we want to do. What I've called for is in the new year, in January, or at least by February, for a highway superintendent to have a meeting here at a work session with some road paving professionals and with some information of going around the town and actually giving us what the recommendation is and for what roads, whether it's oil and stone with a binder, or straight blacktop, with what kind of, year we can look at as far as how long of a life term, whatever the word I'm looking for is, and actually make a presentation, and then we can put that together and make a decision cumulatively of what avenue we're going to go, whether we're going to go for a bond and move forward in this paving season coming up in 2013 to do some paving, or if it's significant enough to put it on as a referendum in November. That's what I would call for, to actually have a real comprehensive discussion in the beginning of the new year to figure out what avenue we're going to go with, because either one way or the other, we need to do additional work above and beyond the 115,000 that's listed there.
Well, I don't think there's any real issue that many of the roads in town are continuing to deteriorate. I mean, 138, when I come out, is...
So that's not our town. The 138 is not our road. So you got to remember, that's another thing that's very, people have to realize. A majority of the roads that are most traveled are not town-maintained roads.
Right. 138, 121.
138, 121, 35, 123,
124.
124,
The,
22.
I think it's fairly well known that I really wanted to put some money in the budget for that. But I have not been able to carry a significant number of people with me,
And
either in the audience or on this table.
And just last point, this is more going in the future here, as far as I think that there should be some kind of study referable to highway, just not even highway specific, parks, as far as maintenance. If there's any component of it, because I've done some reading, and actually in New Jersey, Governor Christie and other states, they've put out requests for proposals as far as privatizing limited components of maintenance for things like parks and debris removal, and whether it's snow, whatever part of it. I just would strongly recommend that there be some type of study done, even having a committee which is appointed here, to just confirm that our tax dollars are being spent in the most efficient way, to support our highway department, that we're spending to get the most bang for the buck in everything that they do, and to the extent that there are components of their job that can be effectuated more efficiently, that we consider if there is any part of that can be put out to bid, just as a check on that.
Listen, we can make you feel good. We've been doing that. And we actually did that in this budget with some of our mowing, maintenance. We worked long and hard over the last few years to start privatizing a lot of the mowing in the cemeteries, mowing in different areas. That's why we actually, if you notice, the amount of staff that we've cut out of maintenance and parks over the last couple of years, full bodies that are gone now, and that's because of being able to save that money, not having a full-time employee, and going to privatizing on some of those contracts.
The basic point is that the people, we have less employees, we should use the town employees, their highest and best use, their highest skill set in doing things, and things that they are not, they should have support that the dollars are being spent in the most efficient way possible.
Yep.
And some of these jobs require the person who does them to be very flexible. I can bid mowing a cemetery. It's a defined job which needs doing throughout the summer. It is rather hard to define, I want you to line that field, and then I want you to go and replenish the chemicals at the swimming pool, and then I need you to go. That is not really puttable-outable. Do you know what
Town handyman who could do a whole bunch of things, which is
Well,
very
we've
hard to
got
get.
them.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Richard.
Jeff Brill in South Salem. Was there contingency in this budget?
There's no contingency, there is a reserve.
There is a reserve?
Yes.
Did you add to the reserve? or-
49,000.
What?
49,000,
You added to the reserve.
49,000.
When? What do you mean, I added to it? We added to it.
Did you add to it this year, or is it the same as it was?
Did we increase the number,
Yeah.
or did we add to it?
Yeah.
What do you,
The-
don't understand what you're asking. Do you want,
Yeah.
do you want to know?
Well,
if
a
we
reserve fund
increased-
is a reserve
Increased the
fund.
number from last year, or did we
Yeah.
put more in it? No, we did not increase the number from last year.
It was 50,000 in last year's budget, and it's
You
50,000
have
in
to,
this year's
I
budget.
think
Knocked it down by
you were talking about the surplus versus an actual operating. In this year's budget, we are going to add $49,000
Right.
to the surplus, existing surplus.
And we've been building that
It's the
surplus.
same, relatively the same, it's slightly less than the amount we were budgeted to add to the surplus last year, so.
And how
I'd
much
say
is
it's
the
the same.
surplus? How much is the surplus?
Well,
At the end of 2011, the surplus was measured at 400,000. However, you have to look at what is the usable fund, and at this point, the usable fund is still in a negative state of 200,000. So there is no usable surplus. There's no surplus.
Okay.
I think the first part of that was confusing. Probably should-
This is sufficiently confusing that Leo has explained it to me about 10 times. And I am not that good at it still.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean,
Yes, it's fantastic.
Anyway,
the only reason I ask is because for example, I heard that Obama was pushing for $55 billion for FEMA. On the other hand, I think between Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, it was over 80 billion. So there's a
Request
chance,
versus-
requests for money. So there's a possibility we won't get any FEMA money. So how do you cover all those costs that you ran up? Now, what is your sense of responsibility for hardening the town against the new normal? Is there anything in this budget that reflects
The
that?
new normal being,
I was without power for 9 days this year. I was without power for 14 days last year. Okay. I can't go into the right-of-ways and clear trees that look like they're going to fall on power lines, even if they're across, because if it's across the street from NYSEG has no responsibility to do it because it's across the street from NYSEG. And if it's in the right-of-way, that's the town. All right? I can't resurface roads. Now, your theological commitment to no tax increase seems to be getting in the way with the stewardship for the town of Lewisboro. And I really find this budget offensive, that you have this sense of stewardship for this town. And I hope, responsible parties will vote no against it. I mean, for 4 years, the whole idea of this ploy about not putting money in for roads. I think Mahoney did that. He took it out of the budget so we could have a zero budget increase, and then he put a bond. How much was the bond for? $2-3 million to pave roads?
What was the actual final bond for 2.3 million?
2.3.
And then a couple of years later, it got converted to a 20-year bond. So we're still paying for these roads, and they're deteriorating already because no maintenance has been done on them.
Let me just interject for a second, the whole idea of the resilience and all that stuff. You should come on Wednesday also to the Emergency Management Forum and bring that up there.
Yeah, but the money, I'm not here on Wednesday night, but the money for it and the responsibility and the stewardship comes from this board. And I don't see that. I don't see any sense of stewardship for the infrastructure of this town whatsoever. I see a theological, doctrinal commitment to no taxes, but I don't see any sense of stewardship for the town.
excuse me, but somebody has got a cell phone, which you... Sorry, I thought it was me initially. That's why I was grasping for every... Paul, come on.
Paul Lewis, 44 Twin Lakes Road, South Salem. I understand the desire of some of you to keep the taxes below the 2% increase. and I gather we're several points above that, 6, I guess, or not above that, but 4 above that now, I guess. It is a good challenge, and I appreciate the efforts for you to do so. But I think at this point, it's not in the best interest of the town. One must think longer term and toward the life of the infrastructure, the quality of the town, and the life in it. Our highway system is a major component of that quality and will be compromised with this latest budget. Therefore, much of the highway budget must be restored. Road paving must be provided for in the budget. If some of the roads are allowed to deteriorate further, the road base will be ruined and the cost to pave in the future will be much higher. Listen to our highway expert. And while I was conducting mapping surveys of the catch basins and conveyance systems down in Vista portion of town this summer, a couple of residents were very upset about the condition of their roads, and they were upset that there's been no commitment from the town to pave them. The funds should be provided for in this budget, not funded by a bond, and not to be put up for a public referendum. Most of the roads in town are in pretty good shape, and unless one lives on or travels a deteriorated road regularly, the voters probably will not vote to pave the roads in general. You should not abrogate your responsibility by going to a referendum on basic needs. We elected you to make these decisions. And what would you do if the town, if they were voted down? And borrowing to pave roads is wrong. It is one thing if the town has a need for a truly major expense and needs to float a bond, but an annual paving budget should not be financed. And also, I see no mention of a vac truck or funds for cleaning storm drains. And this is stuff that has to be done every year.
The vac truck has been taken care of, Paul, pretty well. As far as, the agreement with Pound Ridge?
I know you had one with North Salem.
Yes, and then we went and did one with Pound Ridge as well.
Yeah, we were able to use salvage portions of our truck
Okay.
with
Use theirs whenever we need.
with theirs and use theirs whenever we need it now. So we've got that was a great intermunicipal agreement with Pound Ridge.
So that's going forward and.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
our
Oh,
fund.
yes.
We're doing it.
Because we've got,
It's-
okay.
Yeah.
It's already up and working,
Yes.
right?
Service with this one, they just put it in service 2 weeks ago. We get a couple years out of it, that's great.
Yep.
From the spring and shit, so.
And I seem to remember it's our engine and their body.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, good. I just
Yep.
didn't see anything in there. I was worried.
No, that's
Stormwater, we got some responsibilities there, so. So in summary, I'd say restore the budget cuts made to the highway department, fund highway and equipment maintenance with a modest tax increase needed, and pay as you go rather than borrowing. Trickle-down debt is not a responsible option. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? In that case, I'm going to ask for a motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you for a sense of the board before I put it to the vote. Do you wish to vote on this budget tonight, or do you want to delay that until the 17th?
The only comment I had, and I genuinely appreciate, really by their own volition with some pushing from the town board, how the department heads have gone back essentially for a third time and have found ways of cutting their expenses and also reevaluated their revenue, projected revenue stream. And I genuinely mean and sincerely mean, I thank you for that. The only two departments that we haven't heard from on those two issues are library and police, according to my records. And I'm not sure if there's any areas within either one of those departments that we could create or we could reevaluate their projected revenue, or if there's any additional expenses.
On the library, Leo and I went through their budget, and quite honestly, it was I hate to say this about a non-town agency, but it was possibly the best constructed budget that we saw during this entire process.
I agree with that. I absolutely, they presented it, it was with clarity. I absolutely agree with that.
They then went back and they reduced it.
But prior to, subsequent to the presentation?
Yes, subsequent to the initial presentation, they reduced it. I don't know if it was in between
I don't have a
me.
memory of that.
I think it may have been in between Leo and myself seeing it.
Yeah,
and
because
you
I don't
seeing
remember
it.
seeing it.
But at one stage, there was a definite, Charlie,
What
help.
line is it?
Yes, I currently serve on the library board, and there was a small increase requested in the original request, and then the board came back and gave you a 0% request. And to that end, that includes the staff not having a raise once again for the last 5 years. The library staff not having a raise. It was a contentious part on our board, and just for you to be aware, a 1% increase to the staff there would mean $3,000. So, you're asking where you could just save money. If you had $3,000, it would mean the ability to give the library staff a 1% raise for the first time in 5 years.
Charlie, are you asking for that now or not?
I have
Sorry,
to say I would
think-
ask for that $3,000.
Okay.
And that is an extra burden on the taxpayers. But, after seeing, this was my first year on the board, I was not fully aware that they had not received any kind of raise in 5 years at this building.
Okay, I have realized that I was wrong. I misspoke at the beginning of this. The revision downward in the library budget occurred before the rest of the board ever saw the budget, and in between Leo and myself seeing it and it being presented to the board, I think. Please,
Can I ask another question about the library? I know they went out with a funding letter, and I'm wondering, is that tied to the ability to keep the library open on Sunday? Are we running out of the support that we had from donors for that? Are we at risk of losing Sunday?
this is the last year, right?
Yes, this is the last year of using money that was given as a grant originally toward the larger expansion program, but then when that was put by the wayside for the renovation of this space, $20,000 was made available to make sure that they keep their doors open on Sunday, and that's being used in the budget for 2013.
Right, so there is an operating shortfall now, if you look at that in a sense.
Long term, yes, and hopefully with the reconstruction, with the new programming space, there could be new revenues and
Programming and
more
such.
use. But thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks. Any comments on police? Quite honestly, we did go through the police budget pretty thoroughly. The one thing that I guess you could argue is up for grabs in the police budget is replacing 2 cars. But, hey guys, we're at the point, we have deferred replacing cars to the point where we had one recent night with no policeman on the road. Not because there was nobody available. The guy was standing in the townhouse trying to get a ride somewhere because we didn't have a police car available.
You need to have the equipment to do the
We've
job.
got to have equipment for
I'm
it.
not disagreeing with that.
Okay.
I'm
That
not
was-
even remotely disagreeing with that.
I'm not that keen on police cars, but that night kind of persuaded me.
They need some.
4-wheel drives.
I'm fine with doing this tonight.
As am I with those responses.
Certainly want to keep those in the budget. I have no other.
Oh, do you want to vote on it tonight? That was the original.
Vote on it
Vote on
tonight? I mean, I'm in no hurry. If there's any chance that there'll be any new learnings as far as actuals or something, Leo, through the 17th, are we working on certain pieces that there could be new information? I'd be okay to hold it open, but, you know, other than that, I don't have any needs. Nothing that you know of, or?
I just want to be late.
Yay, nay?
I don't.
Actually, I was directing that at Peter,
Oh,
because you seem to be on the fence.
me,
No, not you,
Oh.
Dan.
oh,
No.
Dan.
You know, if there's any chance to convince my colleagues to put the put the paving budget back in and the lost
Hey.
highway guy, then I would keep it open. That would be another.
Dan,
Another.
I have done my damned. I've gone to the stake for the highway budget. And quite honestly, I failed. And I don't see,
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I don't see
Open
that
a-
changing
a wound for you.
in the
Dan,
next week.
Well, I'm just going to respond, not necessarily just to Jeff, but to any of the doubting Thomases out there about stewardship, because it really sticks in my craw. I mean, I was involved with the original bonding. Now, the roads were in such poor condition because of the lack of repair, and there had been somewhat of a repair budget at one point in time, but it wasn't there when I came into office. But the roads were in such a lack of repair, it wasn't a debate about not having a tax increase or not. It was, no doubt it had to be bonded because of the millions of dollars that had to be spent because of what the highway superintendent said to us, but the amount of roads that needed to be repaved. So the thought process at that point in time, and I can tell you, it was my thought process right from me, is that we're going to do this bonding, get the roads up to snuff, add to the budget a legitimate repair line on top of the 100,000 with chips, add another 100 to 200 what supervisor is proposing. So we have about maybe 300,000, maybe a little less depending on what kind of shape we get them in a year to maintain and keep up with it. So we'd have a 2-year paving program. Well, we did the 2-year paving program and we paved, between repairing and paving, we probably got close to about, almost 20 miles? About 13 full, plus another 7, so about almost 20 miles of roads that were back up to snuff. Right about that time, a little bit past that, we started to look, the bottom fell out of the market and everything else. So it put us in the back seat. Well, we still had that CHIPS money, and we were able to secure a grant that we still haven't used yet, a small grant for one road in town.
Because it hasn't been released by the
Exactly.
governor.
Exactly. We
That's
haven't been
why
able
we
to.
haven't used it.
No, not only that, because we weren't going to just use that, we wanted to combine that. Could ask the highway superintendent, because it's not going to be cost effective to have them come out there just for that money. So we were going to use
Okay.
the CHIPS money and that to start working on those roads in Vista. So we would have started there. But what happened? We had an outcry about Chapel. We had another study that was proposed by a different supervisor, I believe it was Mr. Brancotti. Good project to talk about what to do with the dirt roads. So we made the conscientious decision because of what the highway superintendent informed us about, once again, stewardship. How much money are we putting into fill on item 4 onto Chapel? How much money are we putting into these roads that's going to wind up into wetlands, clogging the wetlands? We listen, thinking environmentally, globally, not just locally. In the watershed, we're thinking. What happens? We make the big decision under another supervisor. We keep moving. We pave Chapel. So we use a big chunk of money, which could have been used to do other paving, but we said, you know what? We'll use some for pothole repair, hoping we get enough with paving Chapel. We were going to use the additional with hopefully that grant money that didn't get released to do work in Vista. But what do? We got Chapel paved. So that was a huge thing of stewardship to get done. And this is all, yes, at the detriment to some of the roads, but the money that was being spent in item 4 now can come back into that budget to help eventually either spending money on other roads, doing some other environmental improvements. We're hoping to do things with East Street and other dirt roads, but also move on to paving. Meanwhile, what we're being told by residents that live on some of the poorer condition roads, especially down in Vista where I am, roads that were kind of beefed up, getting ready for paving, doing the shoulders and things like that, that we need to do a lot more than just the amount of money in just resurface money, just $200,000. We're at the point now where we need to make a good bang for our buck. And on the same note, do we go with chip seal? Do we go with chip seal with maybe a top? Do we go with actually using macadam, which is just full paving? What's the real answer? We started off about almost a year ago. We did have a brief meeting, and from the meeting we had, I think Dan and I were of the opinion, you know what, you get more years out of what you're paying for. The blacktop may be the way to go. Meanwhile, John and Frank, we were debating about it and all, and we wanted to do more on that. We hadn't got to that yet. So in my opinion, just to go put $200-something thousand in at this point in time with everything else going on is fruitless. I'm for doing the roads. That's why I'm calling for, let's do this. The beginning of, well, we can't do it at the beginning of January with the organizational meeting, but as soon as we get through that, let's get an expert in here. Let's figure out what's going on. If it's only going to be a few $100,000, maybe we roll that into the next taxes, or we see what we can do out of this. If not, if we're looking at $1 million number again, then you're talking about a capital improvement. I did some research too after listening to Dan and everything. I went online. I looked at budgets. The Gatsby rules of accounting. That's all towns and all, they bond for major road resurfacing. Not for road repair, I agree. If you're just filling potholes and doing that, that's not bondable. But if you're going to do a major project like we did back a number of years ago when you're paving 10, 15 miles of road to get ahead of this thing, especially if we look at the rates that we're at right now, we are in a position where we can bond very, very cheaply, for very cheap money. The rates are there. Years from now, we're going to look and say, why didn't we do it then? Why didn't we get the lion's share of the roads done at that point in time? I've talked to Peter about this. The two of us agree about this right now, and let's see what we can do in February right away. I'm not necessarily saying let's relinquish our responsibility and put it out to the voters on a November ballot. It's a thought. I'm not necessarily against that either, but I'm not against saying, look, it's X amount of money, let's go for a permissive referendum, it's going to cost $700 million, whatever the legal number is that you can go for a permissive and go for that and get it done, because I agree there are a number of roads that need to be paved. But I'm being cut short by my conscientious supervisor, and yes, I'm fine with voting now. I'm fine. I think we've done a lot of work on this budget. I think there's been a lot of compromise, a lot of work by everybody. I think there's been a lot of work put in, and I'm not looking to cut anything else out of this right now. I think we made every effort to bring it down to a number where it's responsible for the taxpayers of the town, and we're going to be able to deliver the services that we've been delivering.
I wish you guys had run for the school board.
It's self-evident, I think, that we are not going to put the road money back in the budget this year. It is also self-evident that we have not solved the problem, and I don't think there's anybody at this table who's claiming that we've solved the problem, and that we're going to have to come back to it at the beginning of next year. That said, if I can't have road money in the budget, this is as good a budget as I'm going to get, and I'd like to put it to the vote right now. I propose we accept this budget.
Second. You can do a roll call.
Oh, I've got to do a roll call? Sorry.
Second.
Second? All right. Dan?
We get to discuss first?
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry. You can
I think
discuss.
he almost thought that was our discussion.
Yeah, I kind of felt that I'd had a little
Thank
discussion.
everybody for working so hard on it, and I wanted to, as I say, demonstrate my appreciation for what you're trying to do. I do disagree with the items we've discussed. I think for management purposes, it's much better to have the paving budget as a line item in the operating cost, because you just lose track of the management of that piece. The loss of the highway guy at this point, I don't think we have any guarantees that this is going to be an easy winter. We're not going to have more, as Mr. Vreeland talked about, the contingency work we got to do, and we got to cover for the safety of the residents. I'd rather have that body there. So there's some basic items in here that I disagree with. So I'm going to vote no now when it comes up. Just to register that. That's, as I say, not out of. I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish. I disagree with this final product.
You know, we put that the overtime money's in the highway, that there is overtime in that line, there's a seasonal, there's a lot of other contingencies there, and you know the other contingency with the maintenance.
And there's sort of random cuts that were communicated.
Man, I'm not trying to change your vote, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, no.
John?
Yes, handful of things. We've all been making general observations in terms of what's taking place at the federal level and the budgetary process there, and how rancorous it is, and how so much of it is being played out in the press. I was watching local television the other day and was truthfully embarrassed to see how our county representatives arrived at a budget in which half the delegation walked out from the Board of Legislatures, and the other half had remain and advance an effort to pass the budget in the dark at one point. So, and I've now, this is my second budgetary cycle, and I've had the benefit of working with everybody at this table. And really, in my mind, we've worked in a cerebral way, we've worked in an open way, we've worked in a very professional and polished way, and I'm very happy in terms of the process and the procedure arriving at this budget. And I think that's a compliment to all my colleagues. And I thank them for that. Second piece is, this is not a perfect budget. The truth of the matter is, I really was aspiring to meet what I viewed to be a bipartisan near state mandate to come in at or near 2%, but it just was not going to evolve this year. That was clear. Our revenue is down in this town. We started with a deficit this year because of an arithmetical error made last year. And we've really done an incredible job getting to the slight increase that we've arrived at without, in my estimation, compromising essential services. I disagree with the supervisor in this regard, and I think he's actually being hard on himself. In terms of the roads, you haven't failed, Peter Parsons. What you've done is you've brought it to the table. Part of problem solving is embracing discussion. We're doing that. And I think at various levels, we've all indicated our unconditional commitment to getting the roads paved in this town. Whether or not it's in the budget, whether it's done by permissive referendum, whether it's done by a voter referendum, whether it's done by CHIPS money and oil and stone, we are all committed at various levels to getting the roads paved. And you brought that discussion to the table. In terms of our town employees who work incredibly hard and who never seem to get a raise from year to year, particularly the highway department. Peter Rippinger, who comes to all of these meetings and seems to always have a smile on his face, notwithstanding the fact that his budget is always getting cut. I really genuinely, as this board member, I think all of us really appreciate your hard work and effort, and we're very mindful of the fact that you're not getting a raise. And we are really hopeful and cautiously optimistic that the real estate revenue that seems to be generated and increased in neighboring towns the residual effect, or ultimately will find its way to our town. And we're going to be mindful of that in each budgetary cycle when that revenue comes in terms of appropriate raises for you. In terms of upgrades in the process, I do think that we probably should get a slightly earlier start in terms of getting out there with competitive bids relative to medical benefits and some other things.
Certainly.
I think we need to introduce competition and privatization to the process of coming up with more competitive options. That's exactly right. And I would hope that would be an upgrade next year. That being said, I vote with that. But what I just said, this budget has my approval, and I'm going to vote for it.
So what John said, I agree with everything he said. I do think, though, the paving in the budget is Malthusian, organic, and geometric, and that's why we're philosophically against it. Okay? Bonding is the correct tool for the job at hand. The job at hand is to take care of the roads as a capital improvement, and bonding is the correct tool for that, not a Malthusian, geometric, organic increase. All right. I'd like to thank everybody for their contribution to the process. I'm going to vote in favor of the budget.
Peter.
I always considered myself, I did pretty well on the SATs, but that one got me. I'm going to make it, I think supervisor worked hard. I think we all worked together as a board. I want to thank all the employees for all the work they did. I think the supervisor made some good comments in the beginning of this meeting that it's a 2.4 decrease in spending if you look at it below our benefit costs. And that's been something the board's been trying to do for a number of years, is to continue to try to decrease our spending. One of the other things is, as John put, we came in to this process already behind the 8 ball. And it was not only because of what John mentioned, we're looking at our property values going down still in this town. So we've got that as an ongoing issue. Hopefully that's going to turn around. Hopefully we can do something there, because we can see our neighboring towns, some of our neighboring towns that are going to be able to meet the cap, like Bedford, they did see a nice spike in their real estate taxes and things like that. They did see an increase there. There are sales that are going on in those towns. It just hasn't come to Lewisboro yet. So hopefully we can see that. We're not not, we're kind of flat there. We've seen sale tax come up a little bit. I think we got to try to all continue to work and pull together. So I'm not for making any other changes to this budget at this point in time. I think, I agree with Frank. I'm a yes vote when we come to the polling of the board.
Okay, in that case, I'm going to simply say that obviously I don't love this budget, but I think it's the best budget we're going to get, and therefore I'm going to vote in favor. I'm also tired of working on the budget. All right, let's poll the board from the left.
I vote yay for the budget.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
You have 4 ayes and 1 nay. Did you record them?
Yeah.
Thank you, Town Clerk. I'd like to now move on to a brief discussion of sandy debris. It is, in my mind, I've talked to the state and I've talked to our FEMA people. Everybody is totally convinced we're going to get 75%. Although, as somebody said earlier on, if you look at Washington, it's a little bit scary about whether we're really going to get it. But I think in the end, they will come through with the 75%. I also think that the individual homeowner, and I'd like to say this to the camera, please keep a record of all the costs which you incur as an individual homeowner because of Sandy. If you had somebody in to cut trees, if you had somebody in to do cleanup, any of that, keep a record of it. There is a bill before going to Congress to allow you to take all those costs off your taxes in the year 2012. So please keep a record. What? You disagreeing with me?
No, not at all. You
Oh,
currently can. It's as far as I know, it's a casualty loss, but I think
Well,
that's.
yes, but there is a large minimum on a casualty loss.
5% or something.
And the bill would exclude the medium, would exclude the minimum. All right, I'm concerned, I think we'll get the 75%. I am concerned we will not get the additional 15% that is being mooted. I have talked to the state. The state is not going to move until the federal government has decided whether it's going to give us 90% or not. I therefore foresee a long winter of discontent while we wait for these two august governments to decide what they're going to do. That leaves us with debris cleanup, and what do we do? And do we just jump off the plank or not? And what I would like to propose is that we do not offer people an opportunity to bring garbage out or to bring logs out from their homes to the side of the street, but that we simply steadily work on tidying our roadways, which includes the bit on either side. What is it, 10?
Right away.
The right-of-way. That we steadily work on cleaning up the right-of-way, and that in two very specific areas in town, which are probably beyond the highway department's abilities to clean up, even restricting ourselves to the right-of-way, we in fact get the low bid from the bid which you put out, Peter, and have them clean up in those two specific areas. That's what I want to do. It's a terrible compromise, guys.
Do you have a sense of how big because that would then be the out-of-pocket exposure?
We have done about half of that pickup already.
But I'm talking about the part that you would bid out these two areas. I mean, now.
As you know, we're not the bid. The bids are open today, and they range from, on a daily basis, between 1,400 and 1,500, okay? So if you had a crew in here for a week, you're looking at, $7,000, okay? The situation is, we hope, and we certainly think 75% will be picked up, but we have to watch, can we pay the 25%? Because these people need to be paid as they do it. My thought was, I said with Peter, if we had a couple areas that are really, really hard to get at, and it's gonna take some time, maybe that's what we do. We put one big crew, bring them up for a week, or whatever it is, and let them attack it and see where we go from there.
Before we were talking about a $200,000
Yeah,
budget. Now, if we were to put a limit on this, then we know, then you use the crew to that extent and then come back.
Originally, we were thinking of getting 4 crews going to Iron Blast, and that's $32,000 a week, and let it run for 3 weeks, and spend $100,000 on it, which is money we may not have at this point. I'm not the controller, I understand that. So my thought was, the guys have right now, we were down there with FEMA last week, the highway department has cleared 1,500 cubic yards of debris. The 6-man crew has done that, okay? And that's already in agreement. The county's going to be removing that through the state, okay? That's going to be taking place, and they're going to remove that and bill FEMA. So that's good for us. Will we have to pay 12%? Naturally, have to pay 12%. Now, he wants me to itemize how much more debris that we have. He's going to come back in a week and see what we've got and how much more that we're obligated to do. At this moment, FEMA has not put a cutoff time. So to our benefit, we're working on...
There's not going to be a cutoff time.
Okay, I'm just saying there is no time frame on this right now. We're not getting paid overtime anymore by FEMA except on Saturdays. If you work on Saturdays, they pay the overtime and the equipment. If you work during the week doing FEMA work, which we have to, you get your equipment costs back, which is at least something we get out of it. We were, the other day, we worked hard to get the snow money in there. That was, the state took out the snow money, the snowstorm money. That was a heavy loss, okay? You remember we had the snowstorm right after Sandy, and the FEMA said, we're gonna probably allocate you that clearing. For the simple reason is you gotta get into the areas to clean them up. They told Peter, and Ed, no, we're not paying the snow removal. Okay, so we had to pull that out. It was a chunk of change, okay? With the FEMA representative we have, he's absolutely cooperative. I know he's been with Joel, and I think the town's going to do okay, at least get back what we deserve to get back.
So I'm just trying to understand, what do we want to approve here at this point? Is there kind of a cap? Do we want to say?
I think what you need to do is to be a little versatile and let's be a little open with this. If you have a cap and you say, listen, the town wants to venture out, I don't know, we'll go for $50,000 and recap and see where we're going, okay? Figuring you're going to get 75% back. But I know what our fund is. We don't have money to play with, so I want to be very careful. Maybe take a crew for a week, hit those spots, regroup, see where we're at, and take it from there.
Well, what do you think you really get accomplished with you guys plus a week of
I'm hoping we've got a couple of areas that are really heavy that need some heavy work in it. We take, when we bid it, we bid for three men, a chipper and a truck. And put these in those 2 areas with one of our guys and just hit it, just work on those. Because quite frankly, we've been getting the biggest stuff out of there as possible for fear of snow cover. And we're getting good there. W. Price has removed some big stuff, and Road Force also recharged the FEMA. So within about two bad areas right now, and it's coming along, we're netting that each day. But I'm afraid that right now we got good weather, and it looks like we're going to have good weather for a little while longer, so we can make hay while the sun shines.
What about the debris the homeowners have been bringing out to the side of the road and stuff like that? What's the deal with that?
I'm not going to pick it up. And that's with a public announcement I would like to make, quite honestly, that debris brought out by homeowners to the side of the street is not going to be picked up. We are going to try to tidy the streets, our right-of-way, and make the town presentable. But we're not in the business of doing private pickup. That's a personal point of view.
How much do you need?
I would like to go for a week and try a crew for $32,000. Put them out there a week, see how we accomplish in that.
$32,000?
It's, what did I say? I'm sorry. $8,000.
Yes.
Yeah, one crew. No, but we were planning on 4 crews originally.
So I move we adopt Peter's plan for $8,000.
Try it, see where we come back in a week. I'll take the low man, we'll hit him out and see how we do when I come back.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's what you wanted, basically, Peter.
Get a shot.
I'd like to poll the board.
I have nothing further.
John Jay basketball, varsity basketball won tonight.
John Jay Basketball won?
All right.
Have you a son in there?
I do. My
Well
son
done,
James.
congratulations. Dan, was your son playing tonight?
He played on JV, they didn't do as well.
Okay. They'll grow into it.
But again, just to remind, Wednesday night, I don't know if it's going to be on TV, but Wednesday night, the Emergency Management Forum at the South Salem Fire Department. It's a good chance to come in if you thought something was done badly, as you said, something was done well. You were particularly inspired by some aspect of this storm. Help us collect all that input so that we can refine our approach to these things.
Firehouse.
The firehouse. 7 o'clock or? I think it's 7.
No, you did not.
I will.
You want to tell them now?
Yeah, as part of pulling the board, I'll talk.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a very good showing at the holiday celebration. I was very impressed with the amount of townspeople that did come out. It was a lot of fun. And just want to, appreciate all the work, once again, that went into this past year. Not only the budget, but all the work that went on by our town employees. There's been a lot of challenges and a lot of things, and for 2012, whether it be, maintenance, highway, parks, finance, tax assessor, receiver, clerk's office, supervisor's office, the finance office, everybody worked, building department, very hard this year. So I just want to thank everybody for their effort, and look forward to 2013.
Okay, one final thing which I should have put in earlier. We got a bad piece of news from FEMA that they are not going to pay snow costs. What?
Snow wasn't a catastrophe, right?
Well,
We were trying. At the same,
their opening meeting, they threw that out to us
Yeah.
at the county. They said, we want to cover that. In essence,
that said, there is a few thousand, about 2,000 or 3,000, which I think I've wangled in, for what it's worth.
Good.
With a personal plea to the state to come to represent me on it. I'd like to congratulate Peter on his award-winning Oscar-winning performance as Santa Claus.
Oh, thank you.
A week ago.
Don't tell the kids that.
Oh, heck. I'm sorry, I never said that. And I would like to announce that there will be town board meetings on the 17th of December at the library at 7:30. On January 7th at the library at 7:30 will be the organizational meeting, and January the 14th at 7:30 at the library there will be a work session. I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
The executive session is to discuss a personnel issue and also a negotiation issue with labor union. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.